Welcome to Westminster Open Lens and our Reboot sessions at the start of the new parliamentary autumn season, if I can call it that. We're very pleased today, as part of this programme, to have Anna Turley, the MP for Redcar. She began her career as a civil servant. She's worked in youth crime and child poverty. She worked for David Blunkett and for Hilary Armstrong, and I first met her when she was working for the new local government network. She's contributed to the book The Spirit of Britain, and Anna, we look forward to your contribution today. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Neil. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for having me here today. When Stephen Kinnock first approached me and said he was looking to do a pamphlet called The Spirit of Britain, I thought, well, fantastic, inspiring title. Let's do this, because we've had a couple of major votes in the last couple of years that I think have probably expressed a great deal of feelings from this country, a sense of frustration, a sense of anger, a sense of things wanting to change, but also I think have thrown up a real sense of disunity, different views, both on extremes, perhaps of left and right, but also geographically different views among rich and poor, different views amongst people of different backgrounds. And I think what Stephen wanted to do was to try and get a sense again of what connects us, how to bring us together, and how to have a forward vision for the spirit of Britain that brings all the disparate parts of us together at really what's quite a difficult and complex time. So I thought this was a great idea to build on the excellent manifesto that I think we had in 2017, but also to recognise that in that Brexit referendum vote in 2016, a lot of people expressed feelings that I think caught a lot of people perhaps in the Westminster bubble unawares, and I think a lot of people didn't quite have their finger on the pulse of just how angry, disaffected a lot of people around the country felt. So I wanted to help unravel some of this and hopefully get to point towards some of the ideas and thoughts that we could look to bring us all together as a country. So I worked with a brilliant young parliamentary candidate for Labour down in Plymouth, Charlotte Holloway, and we worked on a chapter that was trying to look at the regional imbalance in Britain, and I thought that was a really important driver. And there's no doubt that regional imbalance is playing a massive role, I think, in some of the political angst that we're facing at the moment. There's no doubt that we've seen decades, really, of increasing inequality geographically. By 2022, London and the South East will be driving 40% of our GDP. That's up massively from a third in 1997. So we've seen a huge increasing reliance on London and the South East to be the drivers of the British economy. We all know the figures about infrastructure and the lack of infrastructure investment that there's been across the region. I compare my own region in the North East to London and the South East, where in the North East we've received just £5 per head on infrastructure spending, compared to £1,600 in London and the South East. This is just not acceptable. And that's seen the North disadvantaged by £59 billion in 10 years. Just imagine what £59 billion could have done to drive and power the economy of the North. There's also some rather worrying statistics. You're 20% more likely to die early if you're in the North East. 15 out of 20 of the worst care homes are in the North East. The disparity in the funding that's been taken out, for example, local government, has disproportionately hit the North. Schools receive less funding in the North. And 50% more students in Oxbridge come from London and the South East. So we're seeing a huge disparity in investment in public services, investment in infrastructure, and this is causing a real imbalance. But it also feeds into our salaries and the working world as well. The average wage of a working woman in Hartlepool is £252. In Camden, it's £560. Now, of course, we know house prices are different. But again, that is also a huge driver of the economic inequality. The cost and the value of an asset, if you're lucky enough to own an asset in London and the South East, substantially higher than that in the North East. So we're in a situation where money and the economy is being sucked into London and the South East, a huge disadvantage for the rest of the country. Now, this Thursday this week, there's going to be a small documentary that's been filmed in my constituency called The Mighty Redcar, and I'd urge everyone to watch it because it follows a group of young people and the challenges and the problems that they face. And it really brings home to you how your life chances, if you're in somewhere like London in the South East, compared to someone like Redcar, are substantially different. In Redcar, there is nowhere for a young person to do A-levels in the whole town. we have a youth unemployment rate that's 2.5 times the national average. You know, there are huge inequalities that are meaning that we are not getting the potential, we're not getting our young people to fulfil their dreams and their ambitions. And this has got to change in the way that we make policy here in Westminster. I also wanted to talk a little bit more about insecure work and low pay, because I think these are some of the biggest drivers of the economic disparity and the problems that we're facing in the working world. It will be no surprise to people here that wages have fallen 10% since 2008, and these still haven't recovered. They're still sluggish. Now, I hear all the time in Parliament, the government saying, well, we've got record employment, but actually, if you look beneath that figure, there are some very worrying trends. We've got very low productivity, everybody knows that. The proportion of people who are insecure in their work is very high. Statistics show the proportion of people who fear losing their jobs has grown from 17% to 25% between 2001 and 2012, and I think will be even higher now since then. The number of people who are stressed in their work has gone from 28% in 1989 to 37% in 2015, and 68% of workers believe they're working harder than 2 years ago. And we're seeing some key changes in the nature of work, of course, as well. We're seeing more people becoming self-employed. We've seen a 38% increase in the number of self-employed people since 2000. And we know that people who are self-employed are twice more likely to be in low pay. So there are some serious issues, and we've seen obviously the growth of the gig economy, concerns over the working conditions and terms for people in those areas. The idea of long-term, secure, well-paid, unionised jobs is really feeling to be something of the past. And again, I look to my own constituency of Redcar. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, anyone leaving school could get a job at ICI, the chemical plant, at the docks, or in the steelworks. Now the docks have gone, the steelworks have gone, ICI has gone, and there's just a small handful of international, global petrochemical companies that aren't great at employing local people. Those job opportunities have gone. That industry and manufacturing has declined, and nothing has replaced it. And in many areas, I did some work through the Bayes Select Committee, the Business Select Committee, on Sports Direct, and we looked at areas of Nottingham, which had been former mining areas. Again, good, well-paid, yes, difficult, tough jobs, but well-paid, secure jobs. And now they're replaced by Sports Direct factories, Amazon factories, where we see people on agency terms and conditions with very little security and very low pay. So these are massive challenges that I think we face in our economy going forward. I'm also not going to dwell a huge amount on automation because Charlotte Holloway, my colleague who helped me write the chapter, is an expert on this, but there's no doubt that we're seeing the challenges of automation coming down the road. Half of our activities that we do in our working world could be automated. That doesn't mean that we're going to lose half of the jobs. Actually, only 5% of jobs apparently are at risk, but that's still a huge amount, and it's going to particularly, I think, affect some of the currently lower skilled and more insecure work that is crucial. What we're going to see is actually people working alongside automation. So, for example, welders or even mortgage lenders. Right across the spectrum, people are going to be working with automation. I was very struck on a visit that I took to the Sheffield Advanced Manufacturing Park, where they were showing some welding of some parts that they were making in Boeing aircraft. Now, they said at the moment that would probably take a team of about 50 welders about 2 to 3 months to do. Due to 3D printing, automation and so on, that was being done in a matter of hours. This is the challenge that we've got to face to our workforce, and I just don't think we're prepared for what's coming down the track. So I don't just want to talk about solutions, I want to talk about some of the problems that we, some of the challenges and the solutions that we raise in our chapter. And I think there's a real opportunity here for government to recognise the challenges we face, but build an economy that's fit to face them. We need to see more spending, and I know people say it always comes down to money, but the government has got to boost spending. We are not on a level with other advanced economies around the country when it comes to digital, when it comes to communications, when it comes to transport and infrastructure, research and development. These are all absolutely critical. And I think the government has also got to take a regional approach to productivity. It's got to be focused on what the challenges are for each area, what their strengths are. They've got to improve access to finance. We're seeing a huge number of self-employed and small businesses coming forward. They're not getting access to the finance they need, not just to survive, but actually to thrive. And we want to see more devolution, particularly of the skills agenda. I'm very excited that we'll be getting skills funding devolved to our regional level in the Tees Valley through our elected mayor. But it's local areas themselves who know what the economic drivers are for that area and how to best make sure they've got a workforce that fits them. I want to see a much more proactive procurement strategy from both government and local government. There's a huge amount of money that can be used to drive decent paying conditions and local recruitment and workforce and skills and training through the procurement process. And I'd like to see the government particularly targeting low pay sectors and really honing down in how we can lift the wages at the bottom. And I'd also like to see a regional development fund that will compensate the large amount of EU funds that we're potentially going to be losing after Brexit. £1.5 billion goes to our region, and it's absolutely critical that that money isn't lost and that we get that to invest in our local areas. So the challenges are huge, but there's some ideas there and in our chapter, and we wanted to just get people thinking about the future of the country and how we can try and bring some of those imbalances closer together. If we continue at the rate we're going, we're going to see further divestment between London and the rest of the country. That's not healthy for the British economy. It's not healthy for British society either. Thank you very much.